product provided by Nintendo. Thank you, Nintendo. Super Mario Party Jamboree is packed to the brim with boards, mini-games, and extra game modes. Right off the bat, the classic Mario Party mode gets a whopping 7 whole boards, the most boards in a single Mario Party game that you'll find on the Switch. 5 out of the 7 boards are brand new, being Wiggler's Tree Party, Roll'em Raceway, Goomba Lagoon, Rainbow Galleria, and King Bowser's Keep. Each of these boards have their own unique features and mechanics. In Wiggler's Tree Party, the Mega Wiggler in the middle of the board will move around when it hears a bell, which changes the overall route that players can take. In Roll'em Raceway, everyone races around this track in their very own race cars. In Goomba Lagoon, the tides will roll in and out, which affects the islands that you can travel to, including the large island in the middle with an erupting Goomba volcano. Rainbow Galleria is a 3-story shopping mall featuring escalators and the ability to change prices of items and even stars. In King Bowser's Keep, Imposter Bowser sits in the middle of the board and causes all kinds of havoc, even going on a star-stealing rampage. I really appreciate the fact that these boards offer something different than what we've seen before, and I feel like you can tell that they put in extra effort to make these boards fun and interesting. It's definitely a step up from the boards in the original Super Mario Party, which mostly just consisted of a bunch of squares. Now personally, I do think that some of the boards excel with their ideas more than others. For example, Goomba Lagoon's changing tides can leave players going around in circles on a tiny little island. And King Bowser's Keep can be quite unforgiving in how absolutely savage Imposter Bowser goes. On the other hand, I really like how Roll'em Raceway feels like a combination of Mario Party and Mario Kart, and I absolutely adore the theming and gameplay mechanics of Rainbow Galleria. Meanwhile, the other 2 of 7 boards are from classic Mario Party games. We have Mario's Rainbow Castle from the very first Mario Party, and Western Land from Mario Party 2. I love that it feels like they smashed together Super Mario Party and Mario Party Superstars by offering both new and returning boards. And similarly to Mario Party Superstars, they did an amazing job at remaking these classic boards for the current generation. It's insane just how beautiful these revamped classic boards look, especially with Western Land. The texture of the sand and train tracks, the train itself, and just the overall warm, natural lighting. It all makes for a perfectly themed Western board. Now, in terms of the actual board game gameplay itself, it's another classic Mario Party. At the very start, each player rolls a dice to determine turn order, then everyone takes turns rolling their dice to move a number of spaces across the board. After every player has their turn, a minigame ensues. We'll talk about the minigames a little bit later. Your main objective by the end of the game is to collect the most number of stars, which can be purchased for 20 coins, stolen by and from other characters including Imposter Bowser, and from bonus stars at the end of the game. But what sets Super Mario Party Jamboree apart from other Mario Party games are some of its additional mechanics. For one thing, we have some new items, which is usually pretty standard with new editions of Mario Party, but this time around we have steel traps which can be placed on spaces to steal 10 coins or even a star from other players. There are the payday dice, which will give you coins in the amount of total numbers that you roll, and the shop hop box, which will warp you right in front of one of the item shops found on the board, as well as even more new and returning items. I like the addition of new items, but I also like that the game doesn't go too crazy with new items. It feels like the essential items for a Mario Party game are all here. You'll also find something called a Jamboree Buddy appear during the game. These are additional characters who will follow you along the board with some kind of additional perk. For example, Peach will cut the cost of stars in half, while Bowser Jr. will set a trap space to steal half of a player's total number of coins. Once a player lands on the Jamboree Buddy space, all 4 players compete in a showdown minigame. These are much longer and large-scale minigames that are loosely tied to the Jamboree buddy that you'll be playing for. So Mario's three-peat has 3 classic Mario Party minigames, and Luigi Rescue Operation finds players solving puzzles through a creepy mansion. I was actually quite shocked that they created cutscenes for all 10 Jamboree buddies, and they look good. It once again just shows how far graphics have come even on the Nintendo Switch. But as for the showdown minigames themselves, I think they can vary in quality. Again, with Mario's three-peat, since it is just a gauntlet of classic Mario Party games, it's bound to be a pretty fun time. Meanwhile, with Waluigi's Pinball Arcade, while I love the pinball theme and aesthetic of this minigame, it does feel a bit lackluster. And whoever wins first place in the showdown minigame wins the Jamboree Buddy. Now, the real benefit of a Jamboree Buddy comes from the fact that they allow events to happen twice. Once for you and once for them. So for example, when you reach a star space, you can buy 2 stars for double the price. And when you reach a boo space, you can even steal twice from other players. There is a catch though. Not only do the positive events happen twice when you have a Jamboree Buddy, but the negative events happen twice as well. So anytime you land on a red space or you land on a bad luck space, you're going to end up getting double the punishment. I can't even express the rage I felt when my little Jamboree buddy and I were just strolling along, and then oopsie doopsie we land on an Imposter Bowser space, causing Imposter Bowser to not only take 1 of my stars, but 2 whole stars. So although it can be awesome to have a Jamboree buddy, there is also a risk that you take by having a Jamboree buddy. But besides those major additions to the game, Super Mario Party Jamboree also packs in a whole bunch of smaller quality of life changes that adds up to make quite a difference. For example, you'll find the order of players' turns at the bottom of the screen, along with their current standings and even different board events coming up, like the change of tides on Goomba Lagoon. There are also more indications of what spaces you'll be landing on, which means that you won't have to constantly bring out your map, and it's less likely that you'll make a big oopsie of miscalculating your spaces left. You even have the option of using a pro rule set, which is meant to offer a more competitive experience compared to the normal party rule set. In Pro mode, the game defaults to 12 turns, then at the beginning of the game, players choose an item to start with, and Toad will announce what the single bonus star will be at the end of the game, which will either be the Happening Star, Slowpoke Star, or Sightseer Star. There are also some deeper rule changes to the actual board game aspect, including removing hidden blocks, Boo only being able to steal 15 coins, even players being able to wager a star during a duel. And there are also a bunch of other different changes in the rules. It's an interesting game mode, making parts of the game feel a bit harsher than traditional Mario Party. I think it is at least good that we are now able to have a quite different rule set than usual. In fact, it actually makes me wish that we had a completely customizable rule set for a Mario Party game. But anyway, Pro mode is an interesting change of pace from the classic Mario Party mode that we all know and love by now. And what is this? That's right, Super Mario Party Jamboree actually supports Pro controllers. You see, in the original Super Mario Party game, players were forced to use a single Joy-Con on its side. And while that controller method does make it more convenient, where you would only need 2 pairs of Joy-Con in order to play a full 4-player Mario Party, it was a bummer that there wasn't at least the option to have a standard controller option. So now having the ability to use Pro controllers, a pair of Joy-Con, or the Nintendo Switch Lite in portable mode is very welcome. However, there is a bit of a catch. Using a Pro Controller will not allow you to play some parts of Super Mario Party Jamboree. For example, any minigames that require motion, they straight up just cannot be played with a Pro Controller. Now, I've seen some people say that the Pro Controller should work for the motion minigames, and sure, that might be true for some of them, but I do actually see where Nintendo is coming from. First off, there would probably be some kind of a disadvantage from using a Pro Controller versus Joy-Con for the motion minigames. Plus, the Pro Controller doesn't have a wrist strap. I imagine if people did this with their Pro Controller, there would be millions of Pro Controllers flying across millions of living rooms. Actually, speaking of the minigames, let's head on over to Minigame Bay, which features the over 110 minigames as well as some minigame-specific game modes. I think as with most Mario Party minigames, there are some minigames that I find myself always wanting to come back to. Slappy Go Round is such a fun and silly minigame to play in a duel. Sunset Standoff is always really funny just to see the trickery going on, and the Tiny Triathlon feels like a cute little sequel to that mini tricycle game from the first Super Mario Party. But there are also the minigames that I kind of dread seeing pop up during the board game. Gatekeepers is a mostly luck-based minigame that honestly feels like a waste of time. Stone Eye Bowling feels pretty nonsensical when trying to figure out the direction this ball will roll towards. And Shadow Play, I actually like the idea of this minigame where two players match small shapes together to form a bigger shape. It's just that every single time, I'm too stupid to figure it out. They also have a few minigames that are more psychological. In Hot Cross Blocks, players choose a block pattern to try to get them across the lava. If a single player chooses a piece, they will be rewarded that piece. However, if two or more players choose the same piece, nobody will get the piece. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't the biggest fan of these types of minigames. I imagine if you had a group of really deceitful people, it could make for a funny time, but at least for me, playing against the computers made for a really frustrating experience. And once again, just like they did with the boards, they also brought back some classic minigames as well. As I mentioned earlier, Mario's 3-peat is a collection of 3 classic Mario Party minigames, but we also see the return of minigames like Domination, Platform Peril, and Stamp Out. However, the elephant in the room that I've seen multiple people mention is the fact that despite Super Mario Party Jamboree toting the most minigames ever in a Mario Party game, it can kind of feel like you get repeat minigames quite often. And I think I may have an explanation for that. For one thing, there are many game modes that the minigames are spread across. So because of the large number of game modes, it means that the actual number of minigames per game mode is a bit lower. For the Mario Party game mode alone, they already need 4-player minigames, coin-based minigames, 1 versus 3 minigames, 2 versus 2 minigames, item minigames, and the new Showdown minigames. Again, that's just one of the many game modes in Super Mario Party Jamboree. And on top of that, you can choose to disable the motion minigames if you're using a traditional controller. So out of the 29 4-player minigames that you'll find in the board game, 7 of them will just not appear if you choose to disable motion minigames. Now listen, I do think some people are exaggerating a bit because it's not like you wouldn't get any repeat minigames in past Mario Party games. However, I will admit that it was a bit noticeable just how frequently I would get the same minigames. But hey, it's not a deal breaker in my opinion. Although it would have been nice to have more in terms of quantity and variety, I think the minigames are just enough to carry the Mario Party board game mode. And if you're playing this with a group of friends or family, you'll still have a fun time with at least a handful of the minigames, if not more. On the topic of motion minigames, there are actually a few whole motion-based game modes that are included in Super Mario Party Jamboree. In fact, there's a whole island called Motion Island that's dedicated to these motion game modes. And funny enough, Motion Island is shaped like 2 Joy-Con because obviously, these game modes can only be played using the Joy-Con. The first one is Paratroopa Flight School, in which up to 2 players can use 2 Joy-Con in each hand to simulate flying around with Paratroopa wings. I will admit, this is probably my least favorite mode in Super Mario Party Jamboree, not just for the fact that I'm a fat old gamer who can't handle flapping my arms around for long periods of time, but also this mode can feel a bit empty and pointless. First off, there's a free flight mode which allows you to just fly around this honestly kinda small area with no real objective. But even with the game modes that do have an objective, being Sky Battle, a competitive game mode in which 2 players try to gather as many Para-Biddy Buds as possible within the time limit, and Koopa Paratroopa Taxi in which 2 players cooperate to carry a character to a spot on the map. While there are some cute things to like about them, for example, it's pretty fun to try to screw the other player over by stealing all of their Para-Biddy Buds in Sky Battle, and it's funny that depending on how heavy a character is in Koopa Paratroopa Taxi determines how fast you and the other player will need to flap your wings. They just don't feel particularly interesting to me and was more of a one and done type of game mode. There's also Toad's Item Factory, which is more of a puzzle-based game mode. You have to twist, turn, and rotate the Joy-Con to move different pieces of this puzzle and lead a ball to the goal. This game mode feels like a cute toy, and it can be fun to see what kind of items the little toads are making at the end. The puzzles themselves can get a bit tough as the levels go on, trying to move the Joy-Con around and also taking into account the trajectory of the ball. It actually reminds me a lot of the Mario vs. Donkey Kong games, having to guide a thing to the end of the level. While you can play this game co-op with 1 player taking a single Joy-Con, it can be even more challenging playing this game solo while trying to individually control the 2 Joy-Con in each hand, almost like rubbing your belly and patting your head. And finally, in my opinion, the best motion-based minigame mode, Rhythm Kitchen. They had a similar rhythm game mode in the original Super Mario Party game, but this time around, Nintendo went all Super Saiyan and added their legendary food graphics. For whatever reason, Nintendo has always excelled at just making the most delicious looking food in their games. See Kirby's Dream Buffet. And in Super Mario Party Jamboree, Rhythm Kitchen is a whole game mode just dedicated to that fact. You'll find yourself skewering beef, flipping pancakes, and crafting burgers, all to the beat of some pretty catchy tunes. I'm a huge rhythm gamer, and this just makes me really want a new Rhythm Heaven game. So far, all of the game modes we've discussed are mainly focused on multiplayer, but what about for all of us lonely folk? Well, Super Mario Party Jamboree does actually have some single-player offerings. In fact, there is a full-blown single-player kinda story mode included called the Party Planner Trek. In this mode, the lore is that Kamek is trying to plan a whole party but needs your help in doing so. You'll need to travel to the 5 new boards and earn mini stars by taking care of different tasks from the many characters scattered around. These little objectives consist of getting first place in a minigame, finding a lost object on the board, or there's Locky 2's quizzes for every board. It's kinda cute because they actually managed to make these little tasks relate to the minigames themselves. For example, Shy Guy likes to exercise after eating apparently, so he wants to play some basketball in the 3-throw minigame. You even come across several Jamboree buddies, who after you battle in their respective showdown minigame, will promise to help you out. We'll see exactly what that means a little bit later on. So I think the idea here is that this kind of teaches you how each of the new boards work. You get an introduction to the different mechanics in every board, like the stamp cards in Rainbow Galleria, and then you'll have to actually get first-hand experience by doing it yourself. But after you collect the required number of mini stars for each board, you'll come across some big bosses who want to steal all of your mini stars. And it's really funny because at every single board, Toad says that this is the time that they won't lose the mini stars. Guess what happens? Now this is where your Jamboree buddies will come into play, because depending on how many buddies you've talked to, they will fight alongside you in these big boss battles. And for the most part, these boss battles do feel like slightly larger scale Mario Party minigames, actually quite similar to the boss battles in Mario Party 9. You'll have to throw shells, hop across platforms, or even solve little puzzles. Side note, I am such a sucker for these pipe puzzles, I love them so much. I think the Party Planner Trek is kinda cute. They at least tried to incorporate a story and dialogue into a Mario Party game. I mean, when it comes to translating this into a single player story, what do you expect? I feel like some boards work better for free roaming than others, with Wiggler's Tree Party feeling pretty natural while Roll'em Raceway feels a bit sluggish and boring to navigate on foot. But hey, this is at least a fun little single player experience that also allows you to learn the new boards in greater detail. Now, what if you want to play with other people while still having the comfort of not having to physically play with other people? Luckily, Super Mario Party Jamboree features online play for a lot of the game modes. So yes, you can play the full Mario Party board game mode with friends or through matchmaking with random people online. It's actually pretty crazy because it took Nintendo quite a while to offer online play for the Mario Party game mode, with the original Super Mario Party getting an online play update 3 years after it first came out. Once again, it seems like they really took everything they learned from both Super Mario Party and Mario Party Superstars to give us the best possible experience, especially when it comes to playing online. In fact, Super Mario Party Jamboree comes with 2 game modes that have an emphasis on the online component. In Bowser Kaboom Squad, you team up with 7 other players online to collect bombs, fire them at Imposter Bowser, and play cooperative Bowser minigames in between, all while trying to avoid Imposter Bowser's super duper scary attacks. I think it's actually quite funny that basically, in order to retcon the fact that there would be 2 Bowsers, they introduced Imposter Bowser. It seems like such silly lore and such a rinky-dinky solution, but hey, it checks out, I guess. Anyway, Bowser Kaboom Squad kind of feels like a big online, real-time strategy or tower defense type of game. I was actually quite surprised how fun it was to work together with all of these other people online. You get little message callouts that you can throw out to everybody. There's even an item mechanic where you can throw bananas on the floor and watch Bowser slip on them. And maybe this is just the social anxiety in me talking, but I get so anxious that I'm gonna end up messing up the cooperative minigames. I hate the idea of me being the one who fails volleying these balls. And at the end of the match, you all get the invincibility star and just go to town on Bowser. It's a really fun finale for the end of the game. Meanwhile, the Koopathlon is a gigantic race with you against a whole 19 other players online around the world. The way you move forward is by collecting coins in 3 different back-to-back mini-games. And it's really cool because the screen is split up to have the mini-game going on the left side of the screen and the overall race part on a smaller right part of the screen. There are also items that you earn after collecting a certain number of coins. Using them against the player in front of you feels a lot like throwing items in Mario Kart, like the blooper that inks a player's screen. Then after the 3 minigames, Imposter Bowser appears and forces you all to play a Bowser minigame, which is basically a 20-player survival minigame. You'll have to run away from Imposter Bowser, dodge bullet bills, or keep track of spinning chests full of bombs. And depending on how long you survive, you'll either be punished by getting pushed back a bunch of spaces, or you'll be rewarded with an item. And after that, you pretty much just keep repeating the minigames, however, they'll continue to get increasingly more difficult. I actually really like the Koopathlon because it puts a lot more emphasis on your performance in the minigames. Rather than rolling a dice or something like that, you'll now have to use your skills for platforming, puzzles, and more. I've had my fair share of decent matches, coming in top 3 or even first place a couple of times, but I've also had some off matches where I disappointed myself, my friends, and my family. After the end of every match, you'll even see your rank in Koopathlon, and it can become quite addictive to play a bunch of matches back to back and try to get your ranking as high as possible. Now, I will say for both of these game modes, since they require a high number of players online, it does make me wonder what the longevity of these game modes will be. And what I mean by that is, what if at some point there aren't many players playing Super Mario Party Jamboree a few years in the future? It would probably be quite difficult to match with other people if nobody is really playing anymore. I actually experienced this recently with the online Mario-thon in the original Super Mario Party, when I couldn't find a single online room. No participants found. Alright, well I guess that's the online Mario-thon. I think a good solution for this could have been if they implemented ghost data somehow, similar to what they did with Nintendo World Championships NES Edition, because at least ghost data never dies. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see how long enough people continue playing these online game modes to support it. But at least for now, I like that these game modes feel like these huge, large-scale games, and you're actually either working together with or competing against a whole bunch of people around the world. Overall, with all of the Mario Party games available on Nintendo Switch, I think Super Mario Party Jamboree comes out on top, at least in terms of the amount of content you get packed into a single game. You get the most Mario Party boards out of all the Switch games, each with, at least in my opinion, some of the most interesting gameplay mechanics. And you even get a bunch of extra game modes, including the only somewhat story-based mode. In terms of quality, I think Super Mario Party Jamboree does a pretty good job at keeping everything to at least mid to high quality. Some of the boards, mini-games, and extra game modes are kind of hit or miss, which is totally subjective because while I am an old man who can't constantly be wailing my arms about in paratrooper flight school, I'm sure there are some people who absolutely love this kind of thing. So hey, as with everything in life, there may be things that you either like or dislike in Super Mario Party Jamboree, but there's bound to be at least one game mode, minigame, or Mario Party board that you'll have fun playing. And I do believe that this is probably the biggest and best Mario Party game we've seen for the Nintendo Switch yet. Thank you very much again to Nintendo for providing me a copy of this game. If you want to learn more about the other Mario Party games on the Nintendo Switch, make sure you check out my video below. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about Super Mario Party Jamboree. For now, thank you for watching. Thank you so much to our members. My name is Chase, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye!